I stared blankly at the robotic system prompt, my heart a flatline. I was mostly just craving a bowl of instant ramen with 2 eggs. This was the 5th time I'd seen this opening sequence. That's right. I've been transmigrated into a novel. Specifically, into the body of a throwaway villain who doesn't even survive past chapter 3. To make matters worse, I was stuck on the day of my debut, trapped in an endless time loop. Crash! With a deafening bang, my partner in crime kicked open the bank's heavy, bulletproof glass door. Nobody move. This is a robbery. The boss, a beefy guy in a goofy dog mask, waved a prop gun that looked faker than a $3 bill and let out a surprisingly powerful roar. I sighed, resigned to my fate, and pulled out my own weapon, a squirt super soaker, from my jacket. Yeah, I mumbled, completely out of energy. Nobody move, or I'll get you all wet. The hostages stared at me for a beat. The atmosphere instantly shifted from a tense crime thriller to something a little more awkward. Doghead glanced back, his glare burning through the cheap felt of his mask. Ethan, he hissed, his voice a low growl. Damn it, take this seriously. This is professional equipment. It cost me $50 to rent. Got it, boss, I said, not meaning a word of it. Yeah, right, boss, I thought. There's still a little plastic plug stuck in the barrel of your professional equipment. My eyes scanned the room, landing precisely on a woman in the corner. She was wearing a tracksuit, pretending to tremble, but the muscle definition in her legs was better than mine. That was her, Sarah Vance, the novel's female lead, an undercover super cop, hiding amongst the civilians, ready to save the day. According to the script, in 10 minutes, the real bomber in the bank would detonate his device, causing chaos. And me, the small fry robber, will be taken out by a falling ceiling tile, my glorious sacrifice serving as the flashy firework to announce the heroine's grand entrance. The first loop, I played by the script. I got a face full of ceiling tile and bled out in excruciating pain. Then I blinked, and I was right back here, a second before the door was kicked in. The second loop, I got smart and dodged the tile. Instead, I was trampled to death by the panicking crowd. The third loop, I gave up completely and hid under a counter. Turns out, the bomb was right next to me. I was vaporized. The fourth loop, I was pissed. I bolted out of the bank before anyone else. Sarah, who was on tactical duty outside, mistook me for the ringleader, took me down with a single brutal shoulder throw, and I died when the back of my head hit the pavement. Today was the 5th time. I was tired. So tired. I didn't want a heroic death, and I didn't want a pathetic one. I just wanted to be a lazy slacker, chill out, and wait for the clock to reset. Ethan, what are you spacing out for? Go grab that woman in the corner. We need a hostage. Doghead shoved me impatiently. Me, the aforementioned slacker, shuffled slowly towards Sarah. A sharp glint flashed in her eyes. Her body was coiled like a spring, ready to strike. She'd already spotted an opening. If I got within 3 feet of her, she had at least 10 different ways to take me down instantly. I walked right up to her and stopped. Sarah froze. I crouched down and, in a voice only she could hear, whispered, "Look, lady, can we talk? In about 10 minutes, a bomb's gonna go off. You're unleft. It's safe. I'm just gonna lie down here and wait to die. We stay out of each other's way, cool." Sarah's beautiful eyes went wide, her pupils practically vibrating. This robber, what was his deal? How did he know about the bomb? How did he know she was a cop? This wasn't in the script. Seeing her silence, I figured she didn't agree. I sighed. Come on. You're wearing limited edition running shoes, a military-grade waterproof watch. Your crouch is a standard combat-ready stance. Your breathing is even, and you look calmer than I do. If you're not a cop, who is? You've got to be more professional, even as an extra. Sarah, the award-winning actress, was completely petrified. She felt like her IQ was being dragged through the mud. A bank robber, in the middle of a heist, was critiquing her undercover performance. Had the world gone insane, or had she? Seeing that she still wasn't talking, I found a comfortable corner for myself, leaned against the wall, and pulled a bag of sunflower seeds out of my pocket. Crack! The sharp sound echoed loudly in the silent bank. Everyone, including Doghead, stared at me, their faces a mask of pure confusion. I offered the bag to Sarah graciously. Want some? They're spicy. Sarah was speechless. She took a deep breath, convincing herself this had to be some new kind of psychological warfare. She had to stay calm. Chapter 2. This villain isn't following the script. Doghead was officially furious. He felt his professionalism had been insulted like never before. This was a robbery, a serious, solemn occasion, and you're sitting here, snacking? Ethan, what the hell do you think you're doing? He roared, storming over and snatching the bag of seed from my hand. I looked up, the picture of innocence. I'm hungry, boss. Skip breakfast. My blood sugar is low. Low blood sugar, my ass. Get up. Go watch the door. Doghead yelled, his disappointment palpable. I slowly got to my feet, dusted off my pants, and walked over to the bank entrance where I dutifully began, admiring the scenery. I knew there were 8 minutes until the explosion. In those 8 minutes, Doghead would argue with the bank manager, trying to get him to open the vault. But the vault was on a time delay lock, so it was impossible. Robber number 2, a scrawny guy we'll call Weasel, would be in charge of terrorizing the hostages and grabbing some cash from the tellers. And me, cannon fodder number 3, was originally supposed to guard the entrance and stop anyone from calling the cops. But right now, I didn't feel like doing anything. Call the cops? Go ahead. The top cop was already inside. Meanwhile, Sarah's mind was a whirlwind. This robber named Ethan was acting too strangely. Not only did he see through her cover, but he also predicted the bomb. Could it be he was another undercover officer? Codename Ethan? Seemed a little on the nose. She watched me covertly. I was just leaning against the door frame, my posture lazy, my gaze distant, muttering something under my breath. Sarah crept closer, tried to overhear what crucial intel I might be passing on. She heard me drone softly, spicy beef ramen or chicken mushroom. Nah, only kids have to choose. I'll have both. And a beef stick, and a hard-boiled egg. Perfect. Sarah stumbled, nearly losing her footing. You're over here planning your lunch order. She was starting to seriously doubt her judgment. This guy didn't seem like an elite undercover agent at all. He seemed more like a sleep-deprived lunatic. The minutes ticked by. Doghead was still haggling with the bank manager. Open the door, or I'll put a bullet in you. Sir, I really can't. It needs authorization from corporate. There's a time delay. I don't care. I am counting to 10. I yawned. I'd seen this act 4 times already. I could practically recite the lines. Every time he counted to 3, the manager would wet his pants. Sure enough, 5, 4, 3. A faint, unpleasant odor drifted through the air. I wrinkled my nose in disgust. Sarah smelled it too. The corner of her mouth twitched, and her gaze towards me grew even more complicated. This guy, he even predicted this. Who was he? Tick-tock, tick-tock. The clock on the wall moved with agonizing slowness. 3 minutes until the explosion. I started to get antsy. Not because I was afraid of dying. I couldn't die for real after all, but because something felt off about this loop. In the previous 4 loops, Sarah would have made her move by now. The first time, she used Doghead's distraction to sweep-kick Weasel off his feet. The second time, she picked her handcuffs with a bobby pin and attacked from behind. The third time, she rallied the hostages to fight back together. The fourth time, she pulled a micro-pistol hidden in the sole of her shoe. Even though she failed every time because the bomb went off too early, at least she tried. But today, our hero was just squatting in the corner like a frightened quail, doing nothing but glaring at me. Could it be that my earth-shattering spoiler alert had completely broken her brain? I scratched my head. I had a feeling things were starting to spin out of my control. This was not a good sign. I just wanted to quietly go through the motions and then go back to my apartment for some ramen. But if the hero doesn't follow the script, how is this chapter ever supposed to end? Hey, lady. I couldn't take it anymore. I sidled up to Sarah again and whispered, you gonna do something? If you don't make a move soon, you're not gonna hit your quota, you know. Sarah was silent. Quota? What kind of slang was that? She stared at me coldly. What exactly are you trying to do? I'm trying to clock out, I said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. If you don't move the plot along, we're all stuck here. Come on, go hit the skinny guy. He's got a bad back. 1 kick, and he's down. Sarah's eyes narrowed with suspicion. He didn't just know her plan. He knew her target's weakness. This man was terrifying. She decided to test him. Why should I believe you? She said coldly. What if this is a trap? I rolled my eyes, giving her a look that screamed. Are you an idiot? Lady, do I look like I have the brain power to set a trap? I'm just a guy trying to get off work early. You don't believe me? Look, I pointed at the clock on the wall. 1 minute left. The real bomber is about to set it off. The bomb is hidden in the potted plant in VIP room 3. Remote detonation. If you go now, you might just make it. Sarah's pupils shrank. The potted plant in VIP room 3. That was an incredibly specific piece of intel. She didn't hesitate. Leaping to her feet, she shot off towards the VIP rooms like a cheetah. Doghead and Weasel were startled. She's trying to escape. Grab her. Weasel moved to intercept her, only to be met with a clean, sharp sidekick to his lower back. Arg! He howled, clutching his back as he crumpled to the floor, his pained expression identical to that of his father, who'd had kidney problems for years. Doghead raised his gun at Sarah. Stop! I chimed in from the side, my voice calm. Boss, don't shoot. The barrel's still plugged. Doghead froze. He glanced down. Sure enough, a tiny plastic stopper was lodged in the muzzle. His face turned a deep, furious shade of crimson. And in that split second, beep, a sharp, piercing sound. My stomach dropped. It's over. Time's up. Boom! A deafening explosion erupted, and a wave of fire swallowed everything. In a final moment before my consciousness faded, I had only one thought. This death felt a little more violent than the last few. My ramen. Chapter 3. The system played me. Ding. Host has been detected deviating severely from the cannon fodder route. Initiating emergency protocol. New mission issued. Assist the protagonist, Sarah Vance, in identifying the real bomber and preventing the bank explosion. Mission reward. Escape the time loop. Mission penalty. Eternal life within the loop. I was speechless. I shot up in bed, my eyes darting around the room. The familiar, cramped apartment. The poster of a forgotten celebrity endorsing ramen still peeling off the wall. The empty ramen cup from last night still on the desk. I was back, but the system's mission had changed. System, get out here. I roared in my mind. What do you mean, eternal life? That's a threat. A bald-faced threat. Host, please be mindful of your language. This system is designed to provide you with the highest quality transmigration experience. The cold, robotic voice was devoid of any emotion. Highest quality, my ass. It's been 5 times. Do you have any idea what I've been through? I've been crushed, trampled, blown up, and had my neck broken. My psychological trauma is bigger than that bank. And now you're telling me if I don't find the bomber, I have to do this forever. I wanted to tear my hair out. Given the host's passive-aggressive behavior in the first 5 attempts, the system has determined that the original cannon fodder mission is no longer viable. To ensure the proper progression of the main plotline, the mission has been upgraded to a support role. Please cooperate, host. I'll cooperate with your mom. I screamed in frustration. I'm a villain. My job is to get my face slapped, get stepped on by the protagonist, and then die. Now you want me to help the good guys solve a crime? It's completely out of character. Character can be developed. The mission must be completed. Good luck, host. And with that, the system went silent, ignoring my increasingly desperate calls. I collapsed back onto the bed, pulling the covers over my head. It was over. I was toast. Me, a guy too lazy to even wait for a walk signal, had to solve a serial bombing case. They might as well have asked me to free climb Mount Everest. Beep, beep, beep. The alarm clock on my nightstand chose that exact moment to go off 08:00 a.m. 1 hour until I had to report to work at the bank. I slammed the off button, my mind a chaotic mess. I tried to recall the details of the previous loops. The bomber was a pro. The bomb was homemade, expertly hidden, and detonated remotely. Sarah, despite being the heroine with plot armor, had failed 5 times. The first time, she was too busy dealing with our crew of amateur robbers to notice the bomb. The second time, she noticed it but didn't have enough time. The third time, she found it but couldn't disarm it. The fourth time, she evacuated the hostages early, but the bombers seemed to be watching everything and detonated it ahead of schedule. And the fifth time, just now, I told her exactly where it was, and she still didn't make it. That meant the bomber was in the bank, watching everything unfold. Who could it be? I ran through a mental list of everyone in the bank. The hostages? Most were ordinary people, scared out of their wits. Unlikely. The bank employees? The manager who peed his pants? Nope. The teller with too much makeup? Also unlikely. Could it be? A flash of insight struck me. The security guard. I remember detail. In the first 4 loops, the security guard at the door, an older guy named Walt, was always the first to throw his hands up and lie on the floor when we burst in. But the fifth time just now, he didn't. He just made a token gesture of surrender, then leaned against the wall. His eyes looked terrified, but he was actually scanning the room with an unnerving calmness. At the time, I was too busy slacking off and messing with the heroine to pay it any mind. But thinking back, it was incredibly suspicious. How could an ordinary security guard be so composed during an armed robbery? Unless he wasn't an ordinary security guard, I did a perfect kip-up, launching myself out of bed. You son of a gun, Walt. It was you. I made my decision. This loop, I was changing my strategy. No more slacking. For the sake of my beloved spicy beef ramen, I was going on the offensive. An hour later, I was dressed in my faded black heistwear, a cheap, plastic husky mask covering my face. Doghead saw me and nodded in satisfaction. Looking sharp, Ethan. That husky mask is way more intimidating than the water gun. I just stared at him. Boss, it's a husky, not a... Never mind, close enough. Crash, the familiar sound of the door being kicked in. Nobody move. This is a robbery. The familiar opening line. I took a deep breath and followed close behind Doghead, my eyes like a hawk's, locked on the unassuming, security guard uniform-wearing Walt. Walt seemed to feel my gaze. His body stiffened for a fraction of a second before he resumed his terrified act, slowly raising his hands. Keep acting. See how long you can keep it up. I sneered inwardly. This time, I wasn't giving anyone a chance. I was going to beat the heroine to the punch and expose the mastermind myself. Just as I was about to charge forward and give Walt a surprise villain's backstab, a familiar figure blocked my path. Sarah, same tracksuit, but today her eyes were sharper than all 5 previous loops combined. You, come with me, she said, her voice low and demanding. I blinked. Lady, what is it now? I am Busse. Sarah grabbed my arm. Her grip is so strong I wince. No questions, she said coldly. From now on, you report to me. Your code name is Slacker. I was floored. Wait, what was happening? How did I, a glorious villain, suddenly become her informant? And with such a humiliating code name. What about my villainous dignity? Chapter 4. I'm teaming up with a heroine? Sarah dragged me into a surveillance blind spot. Talk. Who are you? And how do you know so much? She demanded, her eyes practically trying to x-ray my soul. I rubbed my bruised arm on the verge of tears. Lady, did you learn that grip from a hydraulic press? I'm just your average, run-of-the-mill bank robber, I said, deciding to play dumb. The evidence is that he's too calm, I explained. I didn't notice any other loops, but I was watching him carefully this time. His heart rate has barely changed since we burst in. And look at his hands. Sarah followed my gaze. Walt, the security guard, was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, feigning fear. But the fingers of one hand were tapping a rhythm on his other arm. It was an extremely complex and rapid finger pattern, like some kind of code. Morse code. Sarah's expression turned grim. Doesn't look like it, I said, shaking my head. It's more like he's playing the piano. Sarah stared at me blankly. You call that playing the piano? On your arm? While we were whispering, Doghead was getting impatient again. Ethan, what are you whispering to that broad about? Hurry up and tie her up. I turned and gave Doghead an okay sign, then turned back to Sarah. We have to make this look good. Play along. With that, I pulled out a rope. Sarah frowned, but extended her hands. I quickly and efficiently began tying her up, muttering under my breath, Don't worry, I've studied professional rope tying. I guarantee this will be both secure and comfortable. Won't chafe at all. Sarah was speechless. Oh gee, thanks. Chapter 5. Walt's many layers of deception. Okay, what now? I asked after I tied up Sarah and pushed her into the group of hostages. I crouched beside her, pretending to be her guard. We need to get close to Walt and find the detonator on him, Sarah analyzed calmly. But we can't alert him. He's on high alert. Easy enough. A plan sparked in my mind. I stood up and swaggered over to Walt. Hey, old man. I pointed my toy water gun at him. Walt looked up, his eyes filled with terror. Hey, kid, don't kill me. I'm just a security guard. Cut the crap. I said menacingly. You look too soft to be a guard. Take off your jacket. Walt froze. Huh. The hostages were also stunned. Doghead was even more confused. What the hell was wrong with Ethan today? A robbery is a robbery, but why was he stripping an old man? Boss, this guy's jacket looks pretty nice. Seems warm. I explained to Doghead with a straight face. I'm a little cold. Might need it for the getaway. Doghead's mouth twitched, but then he considered that it was a bit chilly outside. My reasoning almost made sense. He waved a hand. Hurry up. Don't waste time. With my superior's permission, my demand became even more righteous. Walt's expression shifted as he weighed his options. Sarah watched from the back, her heart pounding. Was this slacker reliable at all? This was so direct. What if Walt got cornered and just set off the bomb? What are you waiting for? Take it off. I prodded Walt with the barrel of my water gun. Walt grit his teeth and finally, slowly, removed his security jacket. I snatched it from him and quickly rummaged through the pockets. Empty. Nothing. Not giving up, I shook the jacket out. Besides some tobacco flakes and a crumpled lottery ticket, there was still nothing. That's not right. I muttered. See, kid, there's really nothing. Walt said, feigning a pitiful look. Impossible. I was certain of my judgment. You must have hidden it somewhere else. With that, I started to frisk him. Walt's body tensed instantly. Sarah's heart leaped in her throat. I patted him down from top to bottom, left to right, with meticulous care. Pockets empty. Pant legs empty. Shoes, nothing but a pair of socks with holes in them. How could this be? I was baffled. Was I wrong? System prompt. 5 minutes remaining until detonation. The cold reminder sent a jolt through me. We were running out of time. Sarah was getting anxious, too. She mouthed 2 words at me. Underwear. Of course. The most dangerous place is the safest place. My eyes lit up as I shot a predatory gaze at Walt's chest. Walt felt a chill run down his spine and instinctively covered his chest. What? What do you want? I'm a decent man. Cut the crap. I ripped open his shirt. Riot buttons went flying. The hostages gasped. A few young women even covered their eyes. Doghead and Weasel were stunned. This whole situation was getting a little too wild. However, on Walt's chest, aside from a few sparse hairs, there was still nothing. Damn it, really nothing? I was dumbfounded. Sarah frowned, too. Had we really misjudged? Just then, my eyes accidentally fell on the old digital watch on Walt's wrist. It was a cheap, common watch for seniors, the kind you could buy for $10. But I clearly remembered. In the previous loops, Walt wasn't wearing a watch. Why was he wearing one today? I grabbed his wrist. Walt's face finally changed, a real flicker of panic in his eyes. This watch is interesting, I said with a grin, reaching for one of the buttons. Don't touch it. Walt snapped. His other hand shot out like lightning, aiming for my throat. His movements were swift and deadly, with none of the feebleness of an old man. Sarah's pupils shrank. Watch out, she yelled. But it was too late. I never expected this frail-looking old man to be so skilled. His hand was about to close around my neck. In that critical moment, my mind went blank, but my body reacted on instinct. I lifted my foot and, with all my might, kicked him square in the crotch. A wolf! An inhuman scream echoed through the entire bank. Walt doubled over like a boiled shrimp and collapsed, his face turning a sickly green. The entire bank fell silent. Everyone stared at me, dumbfounded. Doghead dropped his fake gun. Sarah's mouth hung open, forgetting she was still tied up. I panted, looking at the incapacitated Walt, equally stunned myself. I want... With a nut shot? This doesn't make any sense. Aren't I supposed to be the useless cannon fodder villain? Chapter 6. The bomber's bizarre taste. Walt was down, and in a most undignified fashion. He was curled up on the floor, twitching slightly, his handsome butt-weathered face, in his opinion, contorted in pain and disbelief. He, codenamed Spectre, was once one of the world's top agents, a master of 18 different martial arts who had planned countless flawless operations. He had only staged this perfect crime of a bank bombing because he was bored in retirement and wanted to experience playing God with a time loop. He had imagined countless scenarios for his capture: being outsmarted by the female cop after a spectacular battle, being betrayed by his own idiotic accomplices, even being discovered by some hidden master among the hostages. But he had never, ever imagined he would be taken down by a husky-masked moron, and in such a family jewel-destroying manner. This was the ultimate humiliation. I watched Walt twitching on the floor, swallowed hard, and cautiously knelt down to slide the digital watch off his wrist. Let's see what we have here. The watch looked ordinary, but I knew the detonator had to be in it. I examined it from all angles and found a tiny, inconspicuous red button on the side. Gotcha. Just as I was about to press it, Sarah's urgent voice cut through the air. Don't press it. That's the trigger. I know, I said, as if it were obvious. How else am I supposed to disarm it? Sarah was speechless. She could feel her blood pressure skyrocketing. A sophisticated device like that will have an anti-tamper, self-destruct program. If you press that, you'll just set it off early, she practically screamed. Oh, right, I said, enlightened. So what do we do? Give me the watch. I obediently handed it over. Though her hands were tied, Sarah still had some mobility. She took the watch and examined it closely. It's a compound trigger mechanism connected to a pressure sensor. Any attempt at forced removal or signal interruption will cause it to detonate immediately, she said, her expression grave. We need professional tools. Boss, I immediately yelled to Doghead. Bring over your toolbox. Doghead was still in shock. He reflexively asked, What size wrench do you need? Sarah was speechless. I was speechless. Trying to rob a bank with these two geniuses must have been tough on the heroine. Without tools, our only option is to cut it off at the source, Sarah said, turning her head towards the still-twitching Walt. He must have the controller for the receiver on him. We already searched him. He has nothing, I said with a shrug. Impossible, Sarah said firmly. Search again. Be thorough. Don't miss a single spot. I looked at Walt with a troubled expression. Search again. How? I couldn't possibly pull his pants down, could I? This was a public place. It would be so uncivilized. Just then, Walt, who had been silent, managed to lift his head. He looked at us as if we were idiots and weakly gasped. Did you? Morons. Forget to check. My dentures. Sarah and I froze. Dentures? I leaned in and pried open Walt's mouth. And there they were, a full set of gleaming gold teeth, sparkling under the lights. On one of his front teeth was a tiny, flashing red dot. I was speechless. Sarah was speechless. That was a truly bizarre and twisted hiding spot. Quick, get it out, Sarah urged. I grimaced. How am I supposed to do that? That's disgusting. System prompt. 2 minutes remaining until detonation. There's no time, Sarah yelled. Gritting my teeth and closing my eyes, I steeled myself and reached into Walt's mouth. Gag! Walt retched. Don't move, I shouted while digging around. Boss, hold him down. Doghead and Weasel exchanged a look, but went over and pinned Walt down, one holding his head and the other his feet. The entire bank was silent as the hostages watched the absurd scene unfold. A robber in a husky mask was performing amateur dentistry on a half-dead security guard. 2 other robbers, one in a dog mask and one in a monkey mask, were assisting. And the tied-up female cop was providing technical guidance from the side. The scene was too surreal for anyone to process. Got it. I finally succeeded, holding a gleaming gold tooth that was still covered in some unidentifiable liquid. I shook my hand in disgust and tossed the tooth to Sarah. Fighting back her nausea, Sarah caught it with her bound hands. She looked closely and saw that the red dot was indeed a micro switch. Without hesitation, she pressed it. Click. The countdown on the digital watch stopped. Success. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. I slumped to the floor, feeling completely drained. Being a villain was hard work. You had to outsmart the hero, outsmart the mastermind, and occasionally play dentist. Did you really think it was over? Walt suddenly let out a sinister laugh from the floor. How naive. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? Sarah asked warily. Walt slowly climbed to his feet. His gait was a bit strange, but his eyes had regained their sharp, in-control glint. He straightened his torn shirt and said calmly, That bomb was just the appetizer. The real surprise is yet to come. He pointed to the central air conditioning vent in the ceiling. Know what's in there? High-purity nerve gas. The second I press another switch, everyone in this room will die silently within 10 seconds. And that switch, Walt smirked and patted his own rear end, is in a hidden pocket in my underwear. I was speechless. Sarah was speechless. Doghead was speechless. The bank once again fell into a dead silence. This pervert. Chapter 7. I really don't want to be a hero. The atmosphere became incredibly awkward. Everyone's gaze, as if drawn by a magnet, focused on Walt's backside. It was an unremarkable backside, clad in standard-issue navy blue security guard pants. But at this moment, it held the lives of everyone in the room. You sicko. Weasel pointed at Walt, trembling with rage. All's fair in love and war. It's called tactics, Walt said proudly, as if he wasn't the one who had just been kicked into a state of existential crisis. Sarah's face was grim. She wasn't afraid to die, but she couldn't accept failing like this. It was too humiliating. Now drop your weapons, hands in the air. Everyone listens to me, Walt commanded, surveying the room and savoring the feeling of total control. Doghead looked at the fake gun in his hand, then at Walt, and hesitated. I sighed. This was exhausting. This guy, Walt, was like a Russian nesting doll of evil plots. Solve one problem, and another one pops out, and with such a disgusting twist. A hidden pocket in his underwear? How did he even come up with that? System prompt. Ultimate mission triggered. Disarm the nerve gas device. Host must complete this mission, where the endless underwear pocket loop mode will be activated. I shuddered. Endless underwear pocket loop? Did that mean I would have to confront Waltz, but over and over again? No, absolutely not. I would rather die. Me. No. Agent Slacker erupted with an unprecedented will to live. I shot to my feet, pointed at Walt, and declared righteously, "Stop. You depraved monster." All eyes turned to me. A look of surprise and approval flashed in Sarah's eyes, as expected of the variable she had chosen. He had the heart of a hero in a crisis. Walt narrowed his eyes. "Oh, what are you going to do now? Fancy another go?" he said, instinctively clenching his thighs. I ignored his taunt and turned to the dumbfounded Doghead and Weasel. "Boss, Weasel," I yelled with passion. "We may be robbers, but we have standards. We're here for money, not murder." Doghead and Weasel stared blankly. "This old man wants to kill everyone in here. We can't just stand by and watch." I continued to incite them. "Think of your mothers at home. Think of your sons in elementary school. We can't let him succeed." Weasel looked confused. I don't have a son." Doghead slapped him on the back of the head. "Shut up. Listen to Ethan." I seized the moment. Now is the time to show our honor among thieves. We may be the bad guys, but let's be bad guys with class. Get him. My speech was rousing and impassioned. Doghead and Weasel, not being the sharpest tools in the shed, were instantly fired up. "Yeah, get him. Son of a bitch, messing with us. Let's go, boys." The two robbers roared and charged at Walt. Walt clearly hadn't expected these two idiots to be so easily turned. His expression changed, and he immediately adopted a fighting stance. But he was seriously injured, and his movements were hindered. Doghead, using his size advantage, tackled Walt like a hungry tiger, locking his arms around his upper body. Weasel, using his agility, circled around behind Walt and grabbed his waistband. Rip! The crisp sound of tearing fabric echoed through the room. Walt's security pants fell to his ankles, revealing a pair of bright yellow boxer shorts with little rubber ducks on them. The room fell into a bizarre silence once more. Even Doghead, in the middle of his struggle, paused for a moment. Walt's face went from white to red to purple, a spectacular display of colors. You lawless hooligans," he trembled with rage. "Stop talking. Find the switch." I directed from the back. Sarah was speechless. She had completely given up on trying to understand the situation. She felt that the events of this day were more surreal than her entire past decade combined. Following my order, Weasel didn't hesitate. He closed his eyes and began fumbling around on the little rubber ducky boxers. "I found it. Boss, there's something hard here," Weasel exclaimed in delight. "Quick, get out," I urged. "I can't, boss. It's sewn in too tight." "Then take the underwear off." "You got it." And low. Walt let out a desperate scream. His lifelong reputation was about to be destroyed. In the midst of this chaos, no one noticed the bank manager quietly grabbing a fire extinguisher from under the counter and aiming it at the entangled trio. And me, my attention wasn't on the switch at all. My gaze shot past the chaotic crowd, past the wrestling men, and locked onto the central air conditioning vent. Nerve gas. I suddenly remembered a detail I had overlooked. In the previous loops, after the explosion, I had always smelled a faint scent of almonds. I had always assumed it was the smell of the explosives. But now that I thought about it, that was the distinct smell of cyanide-based nerve gas. So the gas wasn't released when Walt pressed a switch. Instead, the bomb explosion itself was the trigger to release the gas. The so-called underwear switch was just a decoy, a diversion to distract us. This old man's mind games were on another level. "Look out! Get down!" I screamed at the top of my lungs. But it was too late. In the corner, an inconspicuous woman who had been looking down the whole time slowly raised her head, a strange smile on her face. She pressed a button on her phone. Beep. In VIP room 3, the bomb that Sarah had found but hadn't had time to disarm beeped once more. My pupils dilated instantly. I was wrong. Dead wrong. The bomber wasn't one person. There were two of them. Boom. Fire and shockwaves hit us again. Before I lost consciousness, I saw the same look of shock and despair in Sarah's eyes. Damn it, the sixth loop was about to begin. Chapter 8. I will become the king of try-hard's ding. Congratulations, host. You have triggered the hidden scenario, the Gemini Killers. Loop difficulty has been upgraded to S-Class. New mission. Identify both culprits and successfully prevent the explosion and gas release. Reward. 1 deluxe seafood ramen gift pack. Penalty for failure. Experience 108 different ways to die at random before continuing the loop. I was speechless. When I woke up again in my dingy apartment, I stared at the ceiling, at a complete loss for words. A deluxe seafood ramen gift pack. 108 different ways to die. System, are you Satan? I finally understood why this loop could never end. Sarah and I had been focused on a single target. But this was a two-person job. Walt was the decoy, drawing all the attention, creating chaos, even willing to sacrifice his dignity, in a very literal sense. And his accomplice, that inconspicuous woman, was hiding in the shadows, waiting to deliver the final, fatal blow. One in the light, one in the dark. Their coordination was flawless. But who is that woman? I tried desperately to remember. In every loop, I had been focused on the robbers, the heroine, and the security guard. I had paid almost no attention to the trembling hostages. I only remembered she was wearing a plain beige trench coat and a face mask, and she kept her head down, playing on her phone, looking like just another background character. But it was this background character who had pressed the detonation button at the last second. I have to find her. I leaped out of bed, my eyes burning with an unprecedented fighting spirit. Not for justice, and not to save people, but for my ramen, and to avoid experiencing 108 different creative ways to die. Me, Ethan, a man whose life goal was to lie flat and do nothing, was now being forced to compete. I was going to out-hustle everyone. I was going to out-hustle the bombers. I was going to out-hustle this goddamn loop. An hour later, at the bank entrance. "Looking good today, Ethan. Your eyes have a sharp glint to them. Reminds me of myself back in the day," Doghead said, clapping me on the shoulder. Today, I had ditched the husky mask for a much fiercer-looking wolf mask. "Cut the crap, boss. Let's go. Time is precious," I urged. Crash. The door kicked, the shout, all in one smooth motion. I was the first one in, but I didn't bother with the hostages or Walt. My eyes scanned the lobby like a hawk. Soon I found her. In the corner, the woman in the beige trench coat and face mask. Just like before, she had her head down, pretending to be scared, but her fingers were flying across her phone screen. "That's her." I sneered inwardly and walked straight towards her. Sarah, having learned her lesson, didn't approach me immediately this time. Instead, she observed from the side, curious to see what insane stunt I would pull now. I stood over the woman, looking down at her. The woman seemed to sense me. Her body tensed, and she slowly looked up. Above the mask, her eyes were terrifyingly calm. "Nice phone, beautiful. Mind if I take a look?" I grinned, showing my teeth. I decided to strike first and confiscate her detonator. The woman looked at me, her eyes even a little amused. She didn't say a word. She slowly handed me the phone. I froze. Why was she so cooperative? Something was wrong. I took the phone and looked at the screen. It wasn't some detonation app. It was a game of Tetris, and she had a pretty high score. I was floored. Was I wrong? Impossible. I clearly saw her press the button. What were you just doing?" I pressed. The woman finally spoke, her voice soft but clear. "Playing a game. Is there a problem?" I was baffled. Did the butterfly effect kick in? How my swift actions caused her to change her plan? No. A thought struck me like lightning. I snatched the phone from her and opened her phone's task manager. Just as I suspected, There was an app running in the background with a name I didn't recognize. "What is this?" I demanded, pointing at the app. The woman looked at me, a hint of surprise finally showing in her eyes. "You actually found that? Talk. Who are you?" "Who I am isn't important," she said coolly. "What's important is that you've ruined my fun. And you should know, I hate it when people interrupt my game." As soon as she finished speaking, her wrist flicked. A silver needle, thin as an ox hair, shot towards my neck. It was too fast. I had no time to react. In that split second, a figure lunged from the side, shoving me out of the way. It was Sarah. The needle grazed my neck and embedded itself deep in the wall behind me. "Run!" Sarah yelled at me, then fearlessly engaged the woman. The two of them were instantly locked in combat. I scrambled to my feet, my heart pounding as I touched my neck. A thin line of blood was already welling up. I realized then that this woman was even more dangerous than Walt. Walt was a powerhouse, all about brute force. But this woman, every move was deadly, vicious, and precise. Even Sarah, a top graduate in combat from the police academy, was barely holding her own. "Boss, Weasel, don't just stand there, help her." I yelled at Doghead and his partner, who were still striking a pose. "Oh right." They snapped out of it and charged forward, screaming. And so, an even more surreal scene unfolded in the bank lobby. A cop leading two bank robbers, ganging up on a seemingly frail woman. The hostages were completely stunned. Today's bank robbery was more dramatic than a soap opera. I looked at the fight, knowing I'd be useless if I joined in. My only job now was to disarm the bomb. I ran towards VIP room 3, yelling at the phone in my hand, System, get out here. How do I shut down this background app?" Ding. Unknown virus program detected. System is attempting to bypass. Bypass failed. Useless piece of junk. You fail me at the most critical moment. I cursed. Host is advised to attempt a physical bypass. Physical bypass. I looked down at the phone in my hand. Then, I raised it high above my head and, with all my strength, smashed it onto the floor. Crack. The screen shattered into a spiderweb of cracks. But it was useless. The clock on the wall was still counting down. The bomb in VIP room 3 was still flashing a dangerous red. I was filled with despair. How was I supposed to win this? I destroyed the remote, but the bomb was still active. Was it voice-activated? I tentatively yelled at the potted plant, "Open sesame." The bomb remained silent. I remained silent. Guess not. I had no more ideas. I slumped to the floor, staring at the ticking bomb, and began to contemplate my existence. Maybe experiencing 108 ways to die wouldn't be so bad after all. Chapter 9. When brains fail, try stupidity. Just as I was about to give up and pick a relatively peaceful way to die, I heard Sarah shout from the lobby. "Slacker, how's it going in there?" She sounded winded. The fight clearly wasn't going well. "Reporting, Captain. The enemy is too clever. We're out of ammo. Requesting permission to abandon my post." I yelled back wearily. "Permission denied." Sarah's voice was strained. "Look closer. There has to be a way. Think about the details." "Details?" I stared at the lush green Dieffenbachia plant. Besides the bomb strapped to its roots, what other details were there? Wait a minute. Dieffenbachia? I suddenly remembered that during a previous, more boring loop, I had Googled this plant out of sheer curiosity. The sap of a Dieffenbachia is poisonous, and its root system is rich in starch. Starch is a very poor conductor of electricity. I looked at the bomb again. It was a crude, homemade device. A few colorful wires connected to a digital timer. One of the red wires was stuck directly into the damp soil of the plant pot. Could it be? A bold and incredibly stupid idea began to form in my mind. I ran over to the water cooler in the VIP room and filled a large cup with hot water. Then, I carefully walked over to the potted plant and slowly poured the scalding water onto the base of the Dieffenbachia. "What are you doing?" "Watering it." Sarah glanced in and almost choked with rage. This was not the time to be developing a green thumb. "You wouldn't understand. This is science," I said with a grave expression. "I am conducting a grand physics experiment." The hot water seeped into the soil. Soon, something miraculous happened. The numbers on the timer began to flicker erratically. It jumped from 132 to 125, then back to 01:30. Finally, The screen flickered a few more times and went completely dark. I let out a long sigh of relief. It worked. My theory was right. The bomb's ground wire was connected through the soil. The Dieffenbachia's starchy roots, when heated, would gelatinize, forming an insulating layer and cutting off the current. It was a perfect application of high school physics, though I had no idea how I'd remember that. Maybe. This was the power of knowledge. Ding. Congratulations, host. You have successfully disarmed Bomb 1. Host has been rewarded with a temporary 10-point IQ boost lasting 10 minutes. My mind instantly felt sharper, clearer. Wait, was my IQ that low before? I ran out of the VIP room and shouted, "Bomb's been defused. Comrades, victory is at hand." The three people locked in combat were instantly energized by the news, especially Doghead. With a furious roar, he seemed to gain a burst of strength and locked the woman in a crushing bear hug. Weasel, once again using his agility, zipped behind her and tried the same move as before. I got it. This time it's... I think it's a phone. Weasel pulled an identical phone from a pocket on the back of her waistband. "Don't smash it. Give it to me," Sarah yelled. Weasel tossed the phone to her. Sarah caught it one-handed. One look confirmed it. The same program was running in the background. It's a master-slave remote system. Sarah realized instantly. The one you smashed was the slave unit. This one in her hand is the master. This is what controls the gas. Well, what are you waiting for? Smash it, I yelled. No. Sarah shook her head. The logic of this program is too strange. Forcibly shutting down or destroying the master unit could trigger a backup plan. Just then, the woman, who had been silent, suddenly laughed. Too late. As she spoke, a watch on her wrist beeped once. From the central air conditioning vent, a faint white mist began to drift out. No, the gas. Sarah's face turned pale. Everyone, cover your mouths and noses. The hostages began to scream in terror, and the room descended into chaos once more. Ha ha! Come with me to hell! The woman cackled madly. My mind raced. 10 minutes of boosted IQ. I couldn't waste it, gas. Air conditioning. Switches. I suddenly remembered another overlooked detail. The security office. The main switch for the bank's central air system was in the security office, and Walt, the Spectre who had played such a crucial role, had been lying on the floor playing dead this whole time. He must have had another card up his sleeve. Walt! I roared, sprinting towards the security office. Stop him! The woman shrieked. But it was too late. I kicked open the door to the security office and saw exactly what I expected. Walt, struggling to press a large red button on the wall. On the button were the words, "Emergency Ventilation System." So he wasn't trying to release the gas. He was trying to save everyone. I froze. Walt saw me and froze too, then gave a bitter smile. You kid, you're fast. He stopped struggling and leaned against the wall, panting. Quick, hit that switch. Any later, and it'll be too late. I was completely confused. You, whose side are you on? Walt's expression was complicated. I'm a dedicated and professional security guard. Chapter 10. The Villain's Redemption. Stop wasting time. Press it, Walt yelled, pointing a trembling finger at the red button. Though my head was spinning with questions, I didn't hesitate. I lunged forward and slammed the button with all my strength. Whir! A massive roaring sound filled the bank as the ceiling's ventilation system kicked into high gear. Powerful suction began to pull the white mist out of the air. In the main hall, the sounds of coughing and screaming slowly subsided. The crisis was, for the moment, averted. I leaned against the wall, gasping for breath. I turned back to Walt, my eyes full of confusion. What the hell is going on? Aren't you the bomber? Walt gave a weary smile, pulled a cigarette from his pocket, lit it, and took a long drag. I'm Spectre, but I'm not the bomber, he said slowly. My real identity is a federal agent, assigned to protect something here. Protect something? That's right. Walt blew a smoke ring. We received intel that an international criminal organization, Black Serpent, was planning to steal a vital piece of scientific data stored in a safe deposit box at this bank. I went undercover as a guard to protect it. My brain, supercharged by the +10 IQ buff, was working overtime. So, Walt planned the fake robbery and the fake bomb to create a distraction and throw Black Serpent off their trail. Then, what about the underwear switch? I couldn't help but ask. Walt's face immediately darkened. That was a fake. A bluff to confuse the enemy. How was I supposed to know I'd run into a wild card like you who doesn't play by the rules? I was speechless. Sorry about that kick, man. That woman. She's the one from Black Serpent. Codename, Scorpion, Walt continued. She's the real bomber. I didn't expect her to be so ruthless as to try and kill everyone. Then what about the time loop? That was the question that mattered most to me. That was her doing, Walt said, pointing out to the woman who was now subdued by Sarah. She has an experimental micro-device that can warp the local time field, creating a pocket of repeating time. The goal was to run endless simulations to find a foolproof plan. I was just an unwilling participant. It all clicked into place. So Walt was on our side, albeit a side that liked to play with fire. The woman was the real boss, and me, a glorious transmigrated villain, a slacker who just wanted some ramen, had accidentally become the key to breaking the whole cycle. This plot was even crazier than the novel I was supposed to be in. Then why didn't you say so earlier? I was still a little miffed. And how would I do that? The second I opened my mouth, my cover would be blown, Walt said, equally frustrated. Besides, in the other loops, you died too quickly. I never had a chance to talk to you. I was speechless. This cursed cannon fodder fate. Ding. IQ boost has expired. My head felt like it had been unplugged. The clear lines of logic that had been so sharp just a moment ago suddenly blurred. All I remembered was that. I think we solved the case. Outside, Sarah had successfully handcuffed the woman known as Scorpion. Doghead and Weasel stood to the side, looking at the chaos, at Walt standing there in nothing but his rubber ducky boxers, and wearing identical expressions of who am I? Where am I? Is it over? Doghead asked me blankly. I think so. I wasn't entirely sure myself. So, where's the money? Weasel asked the most important question. I was speechless. Even now, you're still thinking about the money? Just then, the wail of sirens filled the air outside. A flood of police officers stormed the bank. Freeze! Police! Doghead and Weasel instinctively threw their hands in the air. I slowly raised mine as well. I looked at Scorpion and Walt being led away by officers, then at Sarah briefing her colleagues, and finally at the wolf mask in my hand. I felt like I had just woken up from a long, absurd dream. System, I completed the mission, right? I asked in my head. Ding. Main mission complete. Finalizing results. Finalization complete. Congratulations, host, for successfully preventing the tragedy at the bank. You have been awarded 1 deluxe seafood ramen gift pack and 1,000 system points. Host's performance in the mission has been deemed exceptional and unconventional. Host is hereby awarded the most unvillain-like villain award with an additional skill reward. Kick of God, passive skill. You know what it does? I was speechless. Kick of God, that skill sounded highly inappropriate. The time loop has been deactivated. We wish the host a pleasant life. As the system's cold voice faded, the world around me snapped into sharp focus. The sobbing of the hostages, the sharp commands of the police, the sirens of the ambulances. It was all so real. I knew that I could finally go home and eat my ramen. Chapter 11. I'm a city hero. I, along with my 2 idiotic bosses, was taken to the police station as a suspect in the robbery. In the interrogation room, a young officer sat across from me, notepad in hand, going through the motions. Name? Dog. No, Gus Miller, Doghead said, having removed his mask to reveal a surprisingly honest-looking face. Leo, Weasel mumbled. Ethan, I yawned. Motive for the robbery? Gus looked indignant. My wife wanted a new handbag. She said the neighbor, Walt, bought his wife one. Leo looked down at his feet. I wanted to donate a big gift to my favorite streamer. I answered with complete confidence. I was out of seasoning packets for my ramen. The young officer was speechless. He felt his entire career flashing before his eyes. What kind of ridiculous motives were these? Especially the last one. You robbed a bank for a seasoning packet? Just then, the door to the interrogation room opened. Sarah Vance walked in. She had changed into a sharp police uniform, looking crisp and professional, a world away from the undercover agent in a tracksuit. I'll take it from here, she told the young officer. The officer looked relieved as he scurried out of the room. Sarah pulled up a chair and sat across from me, her expression complicated. All right, talk. Who are you, really? This was the third time she'd asked me that question. I threw my hands up. I told you I'm Ethan, an innocent bystander who just wanted some ramen. An innocent bystander who knew the bomb's location? An innocent bystander who could disarm a sophisticated explosive device? An innocent bystander who could take down a top-tier special agent with one kick? She fired back. Ahem. I coughed, feeling a little guilty. That last one was an accident. A complete fluke. Sarah clearly didn't believe me. She was quiet for a moment. Your two accomplices will likely be released soon, given that the robbery was unsuccessful and they provided significant assistance to the police. Well, they can thank me for that, I said. As for you, Sarah stared at me. We're in a background check. You have a clean record. No prayers. You're just a completely ordinary delivery driver. Ex-delivery driver, I corrected. Currently, I'm a proud, unemployed citizen. Sarah felt a headache coming on. This man was a complete enigma. His file was as clean as a brand new sheet of paper, but the abilities he had demonstrated were far beyond those of an ordinary person, especially that uncanny ability to see through everything and his weirdly accurate predictions. The agent known as Spectre, Walt, asked me to pass along his thanks. And his apologies, Sarah said. He can keep the apologies. Just tell him to compensate me for my emotional distress. I'm not asking for much. A case of spicy beef ramen. Sarah was speechless. She was beginning to realize that it was impossible to follow my train of thought. The city has decided to commend the civilian heroes involved in this incident, she said, pulling a folded banner and a thick envelope of cash from a file. For bravery and valor in the face of evil. I stared at the 8 golden words on the banner and fell into a contemplative silence. Me, a villain from a novel, had become a civic hero. Where was the logic in that? This is a $50,000 reward. Sarah pushed the cash across the table. My eyes immediately lit up. 50,000. That could buy so many cases of ramen. I unapologetically scooped up the money, weighed it in my hand, and a blissful smile spread across my face. So, Officer Vance, I said, leaning in with a sycophantic grin, seeing as I was such a big help, that little attempted robbery note in my file. Could we maybe? No, Sarah said, her face a blank mask. All right then, I said, a little disappointed, but my mood quickly recovered. Money was good enough. You can go, Sarah said, standing up, but you're required to remain in the city and be available for further questioning. No problem, I promised, patting my chest. I walked out of the police station, clutching my banner and my $50,000, feeling like a king. Gus and Leo were waiting for me at the entrance. Ethan, Gus said, rushing over excitedly. You saved our lives. From now on, you're our boss. Leo added, his face full of admiration. I waved a hand. Keep it down, guys. Low profile. All I wanted now was to get home and tear open my deluxe seafood ramen gift pack. But as I stepped out of the station, I was swarmed by a mob of reporters. Excuse me, are you the civilian hero who subdued 2 international criminals inside the bank? Sir, can you tell us about the thrilling events that transpired? That kick. How did you so accurately target his weak point? Have you had training? I was blinded by the flashing cameras. I was only just now realizing. I was famous. A cannon fodder villain who became a city hero because he didn't want to die. This script was getting crazier by the minute. Chapter 12. System, are you trolling me? The first thing I did when I got back to my tiny 100-square-foot apartment was to neatly spread the $50,000 in cash all over my bed. I lay face down in the pile of money and took a deep breath. Ah, the sweet smell of cash. I felt like I had reached the pinnacle of my existence. System, come get your praise. I called out of my mind. The deluxe seafood ramen gift pack has been delivered to your system inventory. Please check. With a thought, a large, glittering gold box appeared on my floor. The box was adorned with pictures of lobsters, abalones, and king crabs. Next to them was a bold slogan. One bite will change your life. Experience the embrace of the ocean. I eagerly tore open the box. Inside was a full case of beautifully packaged Mr. Kang's brand seafood-flavored instant noodles. I was speechless. I picked up a packet and examined it closely. On the package was a picture of a single, tiny shrimp. Next to it, in fine print, were the words, "Images for reference only. Actual product may vary." System, I roared. This is your deluxe seafood gift pack. Host, please observe carefully. This product contains real shrimp ingredients, thus classifying it as seafood. The packaging utilizes 24-karat gold foil printing, highlighting its deluxe quality. The description is entirely accurate. I felt like I was going to have an aneurysm. I'll believe you when pigs fly. This stupid system was worse than a corporate accountant. Whatever. Something was better than nothing. I consoled myself and moved on to my other reward from the mission, 1,000 points. I opened the system store. The dazzling array of items was overwhelming. Power pill, doubles strength for 1 hour. Side effect, user becomes extremely talkative. Price, 200 points. Invisibility talisman, provides 5 minutes of perfect invisibility, though it is ineffective against cats and dogs. Price, 300 points. Mind-reading trial card, single use, allows the user to read the target's most intense current thought. Price, 500 points. I was practically drooling. These were all amazing, life-saving items. But I quickly calmed myself down. This was a world inside a novel. I had gotten lucky this time, but who knew what kind of trouble I'd run in next? Survival was key. I needed to be frugal with my points. I scrolled down, and my eyes landed on a cheaper item. Bad luck sticker, when placed on a target, causes them to experience a random, harmlessly unfortunate event within 24 hours, such as tripping on a flat surface, choking on water, etc. Price, 10 points each. This was perfect, cheap, effective, and an essential tool for pranking others. I bought 10 of them in one go. I decided to save the remaining 900 points for now. After dealing with the system, I finally got to the main event, my ramen. I put the water on a boil, took out a packet of Mr. Kang's seafood noodles, tore it open, and placed the noodle brick and 3 seasoning packets into a bowl. The moment the boiling water hit the noodles, a familiar, cheap, and wonderful aroma filled the air. I closed my eyes in satisfaction. This was the stuff. Nothing in the world was more delicious than a bowl of instant ramen after a near-death experience. But just as I picked up my fork, ready to dig in, there was a loud knock, knock, knock at the door. Who is it? The gas company. I yelled impatiently. Mr. Ethan? It's the community outreach program. A sweet female voice called from outside. I paused, threw on a jacket, and opened the door. A woman in a red volunteer vest stood there, holding a bag of rice and a jug of oil. Mr. Ethan, we're here on behalf of the community to thank you for your heroic actions, she said with a beaming smile. I was flattered and quickly took the items. Oh, you shouldn't have. It was nothing, really. Just doing my civic duty. After she left, I had barely closed the door when the knocking started again. This time, it was someone from the city council with a letter of commendation and a $200 gift card. Then it was someone from the local Disabled Veterans Association, asking if my kicking technique was some kind of family secret and if I'd be interested in teaching a physical therapy class. After that, it was the Municipal Martial Arts Federation, insisting on making me their honorary chairman. I felt like I was losing my mind. All I wanted was to eat a bowl of ramen in peace. Why was that so difficult? By the time I had seen the last visitor out, my ramen had swollen into a soggy, bloated mess. I looked at the bowl, on the verge of tears, feeling that life was full of despair. Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello? Who's this? I asked wearily. It's me. Sarah Vance, a cool, familiar voice said on the other end. Officer Vance? What's up? A man's body was found at the city dump on the west side. The cause of death is identical to the method you used to subdue that agent at the bank. I was speechless. I looked down at my own foot. So, you think I did it? I need you to come down to the station to assist with the investigation, Sarah said, her tone leaving no room for argument. I hung up the phone and silently dumped the inedible bowl of ramen into the trash. I looked out the window at the night sky and sighed deeply. It seemed that I, the villain, was never going to get a break. This stupid hero identity was even more exhausting than being a bad guy. Chapter 13. You call this assisting an investigation? Late at night, at the city dump on the west side. The acrid smell of garbage hung heavy in the air. A few high-powered floodlights illuminated a section of the dump, making it as bright as day. Inside, the police tape, medical examiners, and forensic technicians were hard at work. This was the scene that greeted me when Sarah brought me over. I pinched my nose, a look of disgust on my face. Seriously, Officer Vance? This is where you want to talk. The victim is over there, Sarah said, pointing to a gurney covered by a white sheet. The preliminary M.E. report says the fatal blow was to the lower body, causing massive internal bleeding from the impact. There were no signs of a second person at the scene. I was speechless. The kick of God was a terrifying thing indeed. I was starting to regret complaining about the skill. And you suspect me? I felt wrongfully accused. I have an alibi. I was at home all afternoon, receiving visitors. I know, Sarah said, looking at me, but I trust my instincts more. In this particular, Montauk, I can't think of anyone else who uses it. That's profiling. That's prejudice. I protested. Plenty of people know that move. How can you pin it on me based on that alone? Sarah ignored me and handed me an evidence bag. Inside was a shoe. We found this near the scene. Size 9. Same as yours. I took one look at it and almost fainted from anger. It was a knockoff brand sneaker, the same model, but a different color from the ones I was wearing. You could buy them for $20 at any flea market. Half the city wears these. And this is what you're using to convict me. This is a frame-up. I yelled, waving the evidence bag. Which is why I asked you to come and assist with the investigation, Sarah said, emphasizing the last few words. I got it. She was trying to bluff me. Too bad for her, I was actually innocent this time. Fine. Investigate away. I've got nothing to hide, I said, putting on an air of confidence. Sarah led me over to the body. The medical examiner lifted the white sheet. A face, twisted in agony, was revealed. I glanced at it and frowned. I didn't recognize him. See anything? Sarah asked, watching my expression intently. He's pretty ugly, I said, offering my honest assessment. Sarah was speechless. She took a deep breath, reminding herself not to get angry with an idiot. Anything else? I pretended to be a professional, circling the body, occasionally crouching down to take a closer look. My IQ might have been back to normal, but I could still look the part. I stroked my chin like I'd seen detectives do on TV, and thought for a moment. The victim is male, about 5'9", thin. Looks like he's suffered from long-term malnutrition. But look at his fingers. I pointed to the victim's hand. His knuckles were thick, and there was black grease under his fingernails. That means he was a manual laborer, probably a mechanic or something similar. A flicker of surprise crossed Sarah's eyes. The M.E. had noted the same things, but hearing them from me felt strange. What else? Look at his neck. I pointed again. There was a very faint ligature mark on his neck, almost invisible. That means he was likely attacked from behind with something like a rope before he was kicked. And look, his pockets have been turned out, but his wallet and phone are still here. I was getting into it now, feeling like Sherlock Holmes himself. In conclusion, I believe this wasn't a simple mugging gone wrong. The killer was likely an acquaintance of the victim. They had a dispute, the killer attacked him from behind but failed, and in a moment of panic, used that. Fatal kick. I finished my monologue, feeling incredibly cool. It just went to show, if you don't have the brains, you can make up for it with imagination. Sarah was completely stunned. She stared at me, her eyes wide with shock. Everything I had just said was almost identical to the M.E.'s preliminary report. This man, how many more secrets was he hiding? Did he actually have some kind of superpower? How did you know all that? She couldn't help but ask. I gave her a mysterious smile and pointed to my head. Talent. Then my demeanor shifted completely. I rubbed my hands together and chuckled. So, Officer Vance, seeing as I've been so cooperative and provided so many crucial clues, don't you think I deserve a little something? The corner of Sarah's mouth twitched. The impressive image I just built up instantly crumbled. What do you want? Not much, I said, holding up 3 fingers. 3 cases of spicy beef ramen, the kind with the hard-boiled egg included. Sarah was speechless. She was now 100% certain. This man was, without a doubt, a greedy, food-obsessed moron. As for his mysterious abilities, they were probably just a mutation caused by reaching peak levels of stupidity. The case was solved quickly. Based on the clues I provided, the police promptly identified a co-worker of the victim as the primary suspect. Under interrogation, the co-worker confessed everything. He and the victim had a dispute over gambling debts. He had intended to just rough him up a bit for some money, but the victim fought back fiercely. In a panic, the coworker recalled the news story about the civilian hero and decided to imitate the move. One kick and a man was dead. When Sarah told me the outcome, I was standing outside the police station, hugging 3 steaming cases of ramen. So moved I was almost in tears. "See, I told you it wasn't me," I said through a mouthful of noodles. "I'm a villain. I mean, a hero with principles." Sarah looked at my pathetic state and shook her head in resignation. Even though the case was closed, her suspicions about me had only deepened. No one could be that lucky. He always managed to make the right call at the right time. It couldn't be explained away by talent or intuition. "What have you been through?" she asked, almost without thinking. I was about to tear open another packet of ramen to tide me over. I froze. I looked up at her. Under the streetlight, her face was half in shadow, half in light, her curiosity impossible to hide. I fell silent. What could I say? That I was a character from a novel, that I had been trapped in a time loop and died 5 times, and that I had an unreliable system in my head. She wouldn't believe me. She'd just have me committed. "Officer Vance," I sighed, adopting a melancholic skyward gaze. "Some things are better left unknown. You wouldn't understand my world." With that, I clutched my 3 cases of ramen and walked off into the night with the gait of a man who had seen too much, leaving Sarah standing there, completely bewildered. That guy, he was being weird again. For the next few days, I finally got to live the slacker life I had always dreamed of. I slept in late, made a bowl of ramen, and watched mindless soap operas on TV. Life was good. The city hero hype gradually died down. Besides the occasional senior citizen who would recognize me on the street and try to set me up with their granddaughter, I was left in peace. I even used a $50,000 reward to rent a nicer apartment and buy a second-hand computer, planning to get back into freelance design work online. Everything seemed to be going well, but I knew that in a novel, a period of calm usually meant a bigger storm was on the horizon. One day, I was browsing real estate listings online, thinking of using the rest of my money to buy a small studio apartment and finally escape the renter's life. A pop-up ad suddenly appeared on my screen. Shocking. Live-action movie adaptation of Urban Dragon Cop to begin filming. Award-winning actor Ryan Stone to star, with a mysterious female lead generating buzz. My hand slipped and I almost dropped my mouse. Urban Dragon Cop. A movie? I clicked on it. The news article said that the movie was an adaptation of the year's hottest web novel, with a massive budget and an all-star cast. The male lead, the Dragon King from the original novel, would be played by the famous actor Ryan Stone. And the female lead, the character based on Sarah Vance, would be played by a mysterious newcomer. I scrolled down to the comments. So excited. Ryan Stone as the Dragon King is perfect. Who's the female lead? Why all this secrecy? I bet it's a new actress. They would have announced it otherwise. I heard they made big changes to the script and added a new original character, a morally gray mastermind who serves as the hero's right-hand man. They say the role is amazing. When I read that, my stomach dropped. An original mastermind character? I had a bad feeling about this. Sure enough, my phone rang. It was that familiar number. "Hello, Officer Vance. Another murder?" I swear it wasn't me this time. I said quickly. There was a moment of silence on the other end before Sarah spoke. "It's not a murder. It's good news." "Good news?" "The production team for Urban Dragon Cop wants to hire you as their special consultant." I was floored. They read the case file from the bank robbery and were very interested in you. The screenwriter, in particular, said that you are the perfect real-life model for his original mastermind character. They want to invite you to join the crew, advise the actors, and play a small role as yourself. I held the phone, completely stunned. Me, a cannon fodder villain from a novel, was being asked to advise others on how to act out events I had actually lived through, and to play myself. Could this world get any more surreal? No. I refused without a second thought. Are you kidding me? I had just escaped the plot and started my peaceful slacker life. There was no way I was willingly diving back in. They said the pay is $10,000 a day, Sarah added casually. My breathing hitched. After taxes? I asked, my voice trembling. After taxes? I swallowed hard. Officer Vance, I said, my tone changing completely. I believe it is our duty to contribute to the arts. When do I start? A month later, on the set of Urban Dragon Cop. I was decked out in a sharp black suit, courtesy of the wardrobe department. wearing sunglasses, and sitting on a stool next to the director. I had my legs crossed, sipping an ice-cold soda and watching the scene unfold. They were currently filming the classic bank robbery scene. Ryan Stone, playing the Dragon King hero, reimagined as a SWAT team leader for the movie, was in a tense standoff with a group of robbers. Cut. The director called a halt and walked over to Ryan Stone, frowning. Ryan, it's not right. Your expression here, it's intense, yes, but it's missing a certain all-knowing wisdom. Ryan looked frustrated. I'm trying, director. This character is so complex. He has to be both a man of action and a brilliant strategist. The director scratched his head, then suddenly remembered something. He turned and waved me over. Ethan, consultant, get over here. Over. Ethan, you were there. Show Ryan what it was like. When you were facing those two international criminals, what were you thinking? What was the look in your eyes? I thought about it. What was I thinking at that moment? Oh, right. I was thinking that my ramen was getting soggy, and I needed to end the fight quickly. And the look in my eyes, probably something along the lines of, if this doesn't end soon, I'm going to starve to death. Of course, I couldn't say that out loud. I cleared my throat, adopted the same sage-like pose I had used to fool Sarah, looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle, and said in a deep voice, at that moment, I had only one thing on my mind, humanity. The director and Ryan Stone both stared at me. When faced with absolute evil, one's own life becomes meaningless. I didn't see two vicious criminals. I saw the countless families they could destroy. There was no fear in my eyes, no anger. There was only compassion. I was so convincing, I almost believed it myself. Ryan Stone looked at me with newfound respect and immediately started scribbling in a notepad. The director was even more excited, slapping his thigh. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Ethan, your perspective is on another level. That's a true hero. I waved a hand modestly. Oh, just another day at the office. Ding. Host has been detected engaging in extreme posing. Villainous aura slightly activated. I ignored the system's snarky comment and continued to bask in the admiration. 10 grand a day, with free food and lodging. This was the life. Just then, a woman in a police uniform, looking sharp and capable, walked onto the set. It was the actress playing the female lead, Sarah's character, the mysterious newcomer. She took off her police cap, revealing a face that was incredibly familiar. Sarah, I yelped, spilling my soda. Mr. Ethan, hello. Sarah Vance extended a hand, a professional smile on her face. I'm Sarah. It's a pleasure to be working with you. I shook her hand, feeling like I was in a dream. What are you doing acting in a movie? It's a work assignment, she said coolly. A special task force has been formed to handle supernatural incidents related to the Black Serpent organization. I'm the team leader. We suspect that remnants of Black Serpent might try to sabotage this film production, so I'm here undercover. I was speechless. Life really does imitate art, and then art imitates life right back. This plot was even crazier than the original novel. What about Walt? He's our new tactical advisor. I could just picture it. Walt being helped around by a nurse, pointing at maps and barking orders in a briefing room. Ethan, Sarah's expression turned serious. Scorpion was captured, but she hasn't talked. We have reason to believe that Black Serpent's plans haven't stopped. And you, as the only person to have ever foiled their plans, are likely their next target. My heart sank. I knew my peaceful slacker days were too good to last. How did I, a cannon fodder who just wanted to get by, end up on a collision course with the final boss? I looked at the serious expression on Sarah's face, then at Ryan Stone in the distance, still trying to master a compassionate glare, and finally at the 10 bad luck stickers in my system inventory. Suddenly I smiled. What was there to be afraid of? I just deal with whatever came my way. And if all else failed, there was always another kick of God. Don't worry, Officer Vance. I put my sunglasses back on, a confident and idiotic smirk playing on my lips. I'll protect the peace of this world. Ding. Warning. Host is deviating severely from the villain character profile. Protagonist aura is generating. Warning. System has detected an unknown error. The plotline is beginning to spiral out of control. Warning. Warning. BZZ. The system's voice sputtered and died in my head. I shrugged. Protagonist, villain, who cares? A spiraling plot? Fine by me. As long as I had ramen to eat and money to make, I'd even consider saving the world. After all, I was the officially recognized, most unvillain-like, villainous hero there was. End.